Age Cymru Powys and Disability Powys, which has now become Accessibility Powys. And during this project, those three organisations for 3 years employed outreach workers to work across the piece with anybody over the age of 50. And then we had RVS, who employed Hayley, who's with us today as well, her role was to develop companionship models to support volunteer companions working with people, visiting people and talking with people at home. And she'll talk more about that. And also Citizens Advice Powys and Louise and Yasmin here, who were targeted, were working in partnership with the others to provide specialist support and advice and guidance for the people that the project worked with. The 5 partners really wanted to work together to explore how they could improve and develop the work that they were doing with older people in Powys. So they were looking at particularly taking a strength-based approach. It all sounds a bit jargonistic, but basically they're saying, we're working with what people can do and the strengths that people have and building on that and supporting that and helping people where they may have lost that strength for a little bit and need some confidence to get it back, or maybe where they need some things to help them alongside their strengths. But it's seeing people as a plus and as an asset and as a people who are the experts in their own lives right from the start. And to do that, they were taking the project across the board, although each partner does some very different things. They were taking a person-centered approach. That is, instead of saying, look, this is our service, this is what we can do for you, they were starting from the person and trying to say, what do you need? And how can we work with you? How can we adapt what we do to your needs instead of how can you fit into our service? So although basically the project was working with people who were over 50, but the oldest participant was 104. So basically for some people that was over half of their lives. And it was really focused on helping people to get the best from their lives and to do the best with what they have in their lives. Because trying to get away from this idea that somehow or other being old is being less, or being old is being someone who needs support and help. And it aimed to work with people in their context. So people in their 50s have a whole range of, they may have other people around them, they may have communities around them. It was trying to say this isn't just an individual. It was trying to say, well, where does this person fit into their own lives? Where do they fit into the lives of others? And how can we work with that? So there was a strong focus on trying to work with communities, with existing community groups, but with other community groups, and trying to build this idea of kinder communities where people could come together. And finally, as Jen said, the project was also aimed at focusing on building and supporting the voice of older people, given, as you know, I've already said, that they would starting from a stance that these were the people who understood their own lives and were the experts in their lives. It made sense they should also be the people who were shaping and influencing the services that work with them, and that they would be the people who ought to have a voice in how those services were developed and structured and delivered. So it was looking very much as well at how can they support that voice and also develop that influence. Overall, over the last 3 years, this partnership has worked with over 2,000 people in Powys, and it has supported them to tackle the kinds of things that get in the way of their well-being, as well as supporting them to try to have a more sustainable outcome in terms of the sorts of changes that people can make to their lives and how they tackle the barriers that stop them making those changes. So this morning, in the next hour and a half, you're going to hear from some of the participants who've experienced that way of working and how they feel about it and whether they feel it's made a real difference to them. You're also going to hear from some of the staff and the managers that worked on this project and structured it and developed it, to talk about a bit about the difference it's made to them, but also the difference they've seen it make to the people they've been working with, and also for the organizations, the difference it's made to those organizations and the way they are thinking about the way they move forward. We're going to hear from someone who has developed a lot of work around the whole concepts of person-centered planning and trained the core group that started this project, and also from the Older People's Commissioner, Older Persons Commissioner. So it's going to be a very rich mix of things that you're going to hear about this morning, but I'm hoping that it will give you a really good understanding of how this project has been effective in working with people. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. It's brilliantly, beautifully articulated. And Sarah just alluded to somebody who helped us work in a more person-centered and strength-based way. So we all say that we work in a person-centered, strength-based way, and we focused on people's outcome. It's almost become a bit of a cliche in Wales. You know, we've got the Act, a brilliant social services and wellbeing act, and we all say we do it, but do we really? Well, we don't really, because so much of the time we really just want to help people, and in our enthusiasm to help people, we inadvertently, with our good intention, can override the expertise that people have in their own lives. So we really grappled with this, and Owen suggested that we bring in Rhoda Emlyn-Jones to do training with us 3 years ago, and she changed all of our lives. As you know, she's changed our lives as well as the people we work with. So I had a really exciting discussion with her, which Sam recorded. So we'll play that for you now, and she'll share some of her insights.
Cool. Here we go. Fingers crossed it works, everybody. Hold tight.
Welcome, Rhoda. Thank you for joining us today. So, Rhoda, for many years, you will know that we work very hard to be person-centered, and we prided ourselves on it. However, your training has transformed our ability to be so much more person-centered, so much more focused on people's strengths and positive attributes, as well as honing in on what is really challenging and important to them. The impact that we see in our everyday work has been extraordinary. What is it about the collaborative communication approach that makes this difference?
I think in a way you've captured that in the question, Jen. It's about really getting alongside people, listening hard, understanding the challenges they face, and also noticing the strengths, resources, resilience they have to overcome those, but making sure that we don't leap at a solution. You know, people who care about the pain, discomfort and challenge that people have often say to me, it's just a driving instinct to try and fix that, to try and provide something that's going to make it better for people. And that is such a natural human reaction to sadness, challenge, difficulties that people are facing. But actually what that ends up risking is that we override the very person who's at the heart of it and the very issues that are at the heart of their lives. So the key is about being able to listen, think about not what we put in, but what we draw out, so that people are thinking in a different way about what is it I know about this person just in this conversation or watching their lives, or what do I see in their strengths and their abilities, and then letting people hear some of that so people can see themselves through our eyes. If the temptation is, what can I get them that's going to make it better? If that's the first point that people think about, then it squeezes out this other discussion. And it's not that those things that we might get people and do for people are not absolutely crucial and important, but if they come first, then we talk too much about what we're going to deliver rather than what together we're going to discover. Otherwise, we throw ourselves at solutions that seem okay. So if we're all doing that, throwing ourselves at solutions, we don't have any thinking time, and we don't deepen the possibility that we'll really get to the heart of it and build on our own hopes and aspirations. So one of the important things is, in collaboration, we discover the heart of the matter. That conversation doesn't take longer than trying to fix, but it is a very different experience.
Absolutely. What we didn't expect, and what has been an amazing outcome, is how much happier and more supported we feel within our organisation as staff and volunteers. The approach has improved how we relate and support to each other. This is a familiar. Is this a familiar story to you across other organisations in Wales?
Yeah, absolutely a familiar story. And there's a number of reasons for that. You know, firstly, people are really doing the work they want to be doing. And they're seeing the difference that is making. And for all of us, that productivity, that contribution to other people's lives, a sense that we're really making a difference, lifts our well-being and our sense of purpose. So people are really feeling it's a good fit between their values and their principles and their skills and what they care about and what they end up doing every day. So when nothing's jarring, people want to be where they want to be. But I think there's another feature to it too, and that's about the language, that's about the empathy, it's about the respect and the trust and trustworthiness. And we apply those consistently, whoever we're in a conversation with. So our first thought, and certainly in your teams, the first thought they have is, I wonder how my colleague feels. And when that happens, people get a real sense of safe places to explore, to think, to talk, and to become bigger than the sum of their parts, because they feel that the platform of trust and trustworthiness, of values and principles, is so powerful that they can safely explore new territory.
That's exactly what we are finding, that not only are people supporting each other more effectively than ever, and people feel more supported, but people feel safer to explore ideas, and innovation emerges as a result.
A lot of people say that they had poor relationships across professional groups, before thinking this way, and now they respect each other's perspectives and each other's worlds and each other's challenges. And instead of just stereotyping those people, they're thinking, we're all human beings in this together. And what we're really interested in is what we can achieve for the people whose interests we share.
Because that's so fundamental now. We find in that eye rolling is about somebody, whether it's a colleague or whether it's a family or whatever, just doesn't happen. So there's empathy comes first, and that makes such a difference. So over time, we've also noticed that people that we support have a much greater sense of agency, and they're connecting with and supporting each other so much more, and more volunteering, and it seems that this training not only has an incredibly positive effect on professional practice, but helps us all as citizens. It helps us support each other in even more empowering ways than we did before. What do you think about the potential for sharing a collaborative communication approach across communities?
In a way, what you're describing is ensuring that we're in a dynamic relationship with people, that we're not either passive recipients of care and support or deliverers of care and support. We're actually together producing something new that others may need and want. And that unnatural divide, them and us divide of the past, doesn't help us at all, does it, in the truth of people's enormous capacity, participation, skill, knowledge, compassion, love. And there's not a dividing line for that. So if we think collaboratively, if we look for each other's strengths and resources, and then we combine those, then that ripples out into a whole philosophy for our community engagement. And we don't know where that can lead if we start from there.
So, and because of this, as well as supporting people and families on a very personal level, this strength-based mindset has helped us be much more effective in our work, awareness raising across communities and organisations, and in supporting carers to have a much stronger voice and influence on a local level, a regional level, and across national platforms. It seems that the collaborative communication approach, the strength-based, outcomes-focused mindset is a cornerstone skill and mindset. Why do you think that is?
Well, what I observe happening, Jen, is this two-way process, because we're all better heard if we're better at listening. And what I'm seeing people do is really change things from the ground up by listening hard, empathizing with the people they're listening to, creating that safe place, and then they get heard. And there's when people know that it's their skills and communication and values and principles they bring to that room, not knowledge and status, but all those things that make a difference, then the respect and the trustworthiness grows and people get properly heard.
I've noticed that the carers representation on the local partnership board in key steering group areas, young carers and adult carers, on local engaged change forum, co-producing the local newspaper, because carers and citizens and heads of services and workers are coming together and collaborating together. The results are so much richer than they ever were before. And it's really, really exciting. And it feels like we could go so much further together.
It's the energy that generates, feeds back into all of our energy, doesn't it? Some of the ideas that you would never, ever been able to think up are coming from all kinds of groups and people across, and it's changing the nature of those, especially of those huge organizations who've always done it the way they've always done it. And now the doors are open, the minds are open, the hearts are open, and people are ready to unpick it and do something different.
Going forward, through the pandemic and beyond, what is your message to us as community members and as organisations who support people through challenges?
Try not to define what a good outcome looks like for somebody. If you try and fit things from the outside in to people, there'll only be a few people that will actually work for. So we really need to start from the position that people are unique, families are unique, communities are unique, and the skills that we bring to bear learns about that and develops individual and family outcomes that emerge from them, not inflicted upon them. People talk about being released from the structures of care and support and allowed to generate original thoughts and ideas. We need to make sure in every stage we're not planning to do things for people, to people, but working alongside people in growing what works for them. It's perfectly possible to measure all of that. We just make sure we hold the individual at the heart of it, the uniqueness, and we measure where are we together in our attempts to reach a better outcome, and how far have we come and where do we still need to go. We can measure all of that as we have our collaborative conversations. We don't need to inflict a picture of what life should be like and then try and measure that.
Okay, next up is Becky and Hayley. Becky is the most incredible champion of the collaborative communication approach and has become a trainer in her own right. And has done some amazing work with an individual she met called Hayley. Hayley's an inspiring carer that Becky met, and together they made a real difference. So over to you, Beth.
Oh wow! Rhoda's video and Jen's introduction. But yeah, I haven't got much to add to that, Jen. But only to say that it's been a pleasure to work alongside Hayley. And she came to me because an outreach worker said to me, Lisa Bowen said, "This woman really needs to tell her story," and she'll explain a bit more in the video. But Hayley's very special because she's worked within social services for 25 years. She supported partners and parents and children. And she's had loss, and so she's an incredible woman who put her lippy on and was brave enough to tell us her story. So thanks, Sam.
Hayley, you have had such a massive experience of services, both in your working life and as a parent who uses services for your son as a carer. You've given incredible, powerful feedback about the difference it makes when you're listened to and recognised for your strengths when dealing with significant challenges. This means such a lot to us. Would you be kind enough to talk us through your insights today?
Yeah, where do I begin? Yeah, Credu sort of came into my life when it was quite difficult for us with our son, and Lisa Bowen from Credu. She came on board to support me, and yourself came into our home and sat with us and listened. I felt that, you know, that we were really listened to. Obviously, we've been through endless TAF meetings and meetings with professionals who we're very, very grateful for. But I just felt that they weren't listening to me. And I think the openness of Credu, you coming into my home and actually sitting there and listening and being heard, I felt that you empowered me, which sometimes I feel with the services, they're very governed to what they are able to offer. And it was a really scary time, you know, but Credu were the guys that were so open, that gave me the platform to be able to speak to the services and get across my own story, but Joseph's story, my courageous young man as well. And I feel that is really the way forward. We need to be open and we need to work together, as learning from experiences and putting the people that need the care at the forefront. And I think that's what Credu has done. They've made me feel like Hayley again, not a problem. They've given me the strength to talk. They've allowed for me to be down, and they've allowed for me to smile, telling my, you know, my story as well. They've allowed for me to be proud again of my son, rather than him just being a problem.
I know when you spoke on that platform you talked about to the heads of service, they were inspired by your strength and inspired by your expertise and your commitment to keep going even when it was really scary. Could you just say a little bit about that openness you talked about, that listening, how that's helped even though maybe the situation hasn't changed?
Yeah, I think sometimes the complexity of things, I mean, everybody's an individual, every child, every adult, everybody has a disability. Me as a carer, a non-paid carer, me as an employee, as a paid carer, we're all complex. And I think sometimes the more complex it is, the more we make it more difficult and complex, if you see what I mean. Whereas to me, sitting around that table in a TAF meeting and having health one side, having social services, and then having somebody from education, it was like that tick in the box. Nobody could come together and just help us. But, you know, it made me feel very, very frightened, very down. I was at a low. And you know, you came into my house, taking that back to me being a human being, compassion, you know, really what I needed, and to be able to go back and think about it and be able to access the right avenues so that I could talk to the heads of services. And I think that's what is happening now. People are listening, and people, it's us, the families. You know, you've got to get to know us, and for anybody that ever, you know, works with Joseph, they will be part of our family. We're talking about caring. We're talking about the most precious gift of life. You've given us so many platforms where we've been able to listen and enhance our own experiences and chat to other carers, that hopefully that we can help one another.
Yeah, so it sounds like there was a lot of services around the table and a lot of noise and a lot of voices, but it wasn't your voice, as they seem to have really good things that they were trying to do, but it just wasn't coming together. And when it did come together, and when you were sort of at the center of it, you and Joseph was at the center of it, really, it suddenly started to sort of fall into place for you, and you could see it a little bit clearer.
You know, with a learning disability, you know, autism, I think that's where you really, really connected with us. How Joe, it was so painful for Joseph in these settings, you know, that we lost him because his sensitivities, we weren't listening to him, his body, his language. We felt very lonely. We felt, you know, really scared. And I think that's again where Credu came in. You offered us hope. And that's what we all need, you know. We're talking about Joseph possibly going to college, and why shouldn't he, even if he isn't able to achieve that, why shouldn't he have the opportunities, just because he's very poorly, and you know, and you know, that's where you've given us the strength to even, you know, go forward and talk about these things.
I'd just like to finish on the fact that you said before about connecting with other carers. You have brought so much to so many meetings and so many carers, and your experience and your knowledge and your absolute strength is shone through. The hope that you bring other carers and your son and your rest of your family and your community as well is really exciting. So thank you so much, Hayley, for talking to us today, and also for being alongside Credu and being brave enough and to tell us your story, because you know, it takes a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, Hayley is incredible. Becky, that was a wonderful wonderful interview. She's really incredible and inspiring. But we're going to introduce you now, and just to let you know, there's a couple of stories from Credu here, but Age Cymru Powys and Accessibility Powys and our other partners have got abundance of amazing stories as well, and you'll hear more from them a bit later. But we just, my colleague Marie really wanted to introduce one of our new colleagues, really, that has made such a difference to so many people in Powys. So Marie's got a special reason that she wants to make this introduction.
Oh, hi, bore da. So I'm Marie. I work with Credu on the co-producing Respite project, is also known as the Creative Respite Project, and I've been asked to introduce fabulous Jean Carter, who's coming up next. Jean and other carers that are with us today stood up, shared their stories, and as well as sharing their stories, Dylan Owen and Powys County Council Social Services were there to listen to those stories. And as part of that, that's how the Creative Respite Project and the Raising Awareness Project has happened. And since they've started, they've supported hundreds of carers and their families to have a meaningful break. And the timing of that creativity at the start of the pandemic was priceless as well. We've really been able to make a big difference to keep people having a manageable role, manageable life alongside caring. So thank you so much. Diolch yn fawr iawn, and here's Jean.
No, I had to unmute first, sorry about that. That's an incredible build-up, and thank you very much indeed. And I don't know if I can actually live up to it. I have written a piece that I was going to deliver, but perhaps I won't now, and maybe I can share that with other people at another point. I remember when I was walking down in Dorset and walking on the coastal path there, and there was a wonderful extract from one of Carol Ann Duffy's poems, and it concludes with the phrase, "What will you do now with the gift of your left life? What will you do now with the gift of your left life?" And I think perhaps the gift that we can all give to everybody else is to actually care for others. And I suppose I was lucky enough to be able to care for my mother. And I suppose initially I thought, well, it's just something that everybody does. But then I remember meeting a couple of people from Creddy, and then Jen in particular. And they came along to meet my mother. And my mother, very complex character. She had had bipolar and had electric shock treatment when she was 18. And then she lived with us for 9 years. That's my late husband and I. And then she went into a residential home because she realized at that point that my late husband, because of his mobility problems, wasn't coping very well. We also looked after my aunt and my father-in-law. And we just did that because it seemed to be the right thing to do. Anyway, then my husband died, and then Mum was still in the residential home, and her mental health issues really kicked in again, and she ended up in hospital. And at that point, I thought, right, now is the time for Mum to come back home. And she did come back home. She came out of a home. And I think perhaps that's the message that I would like to reassure and say to other people outside and out there in society, that when somebody's gone into a home, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they remain there for the rest of their lives if that doesn't seem to be the right thing to do. So Mum came back home. She lived with me for 4.5 years. Initially, we reached crisis point. And I suppose in life, we all have to reach a crisis point before we actually find a way forward. And after reaching that crisis point, and a team called Crisis Resolution Home Team came out, and they were a collection of young people who normally worked with younger people, but they were brilliant with my mother. And somehow after that, it helped us find the perfect care package that we had in the end. And the perfect care package was a wonderful team coming from Abacare. That is well, first of all, it was TLC, but Abacare, and they are domiciliary care workers who came out 2 mornings a week. And then I was introduced to Havel Crossroads, and Sue was wonderful, and she came out for a morning, and that was a Monday morning, I think it was, and she came from Havel Crossroads. She was brilliant, and we took Mum out into the community. We were shopping. Sue was shopping with Mum, and she had dementia, of course, as well. I say, of course, she did. She died when she was 95, just in 2014. And Sue was pushing Mum around the supermarket, and she went up to the bread counter because I used to ask Sue to buy some of the lighter things that Mum could put on her knee. And Mum looked along the bread and she simply said, "Hovis. I want Hovis." And so Sue put Hovis in the basket. Thereafter, we always bought Hovis. Who made that decision? My mother. So that was shopping in the community with somebody who was unable to walk. If I say to you, she was also incontinent, but that wasn't a major problem. You can be out in the community with all of those problems as they're perceived to be. Then Gareth from up the road, he came to look after Mum for 2 days a week, and he has since set up his own micro care company. And he says that working with Mum and myself, that was what inspired him then to create his own company. Prior to that, he had worked as a care worker for larger companies. I don't know if we can really take credit for that, but perhaps Mum can. And Jen will tell you that my mum's eyes always shone with a smile. She was happy. What else has happened? I think it was through Creddy as well. Cred is very careful because, very clever rather, because it is that strength base that Rhoda was talking about. Perhaps too much, I like the sound of my own voice, but they said, right, you need to talk to people about the care that you're doing for your mother. And so I did that. And then I think it was through Credi that I became a carer rep on the Regional Partnership Board, the RPB for Powys. And being on that, I found at times quite frustrating because a lot of the decisions had already been made. But one of the major ideas that kept coming through from that meeting was we cannot recruit and retain domiciliary care workers. But unfortunately, the question was never being asked why. And I thought, well, if I can try and find out why, so then that inspired me to become a domiciliary care worker, which I have been, and I've loved the job. It's been totally brilliant. I would recommend that if anybody has any free time, that they become a domiciliary care worker. So why do they find it difficult to recruit and retain? We all know that. It's because they're not paid very much and because they're not necessarily fully respected within society. After working for the company for about 6 or 7 months, I think it was, I wrote a piece which I sent to Don Owen, and he kindly got back to me and said, that has enabled us to perhaps think again about the way in which we consider domiciliary care workers, and perhaps has increased the respect that everybody has for them. And if I've managed to achieve that, then my job is done. I will go back. I haven't been doing it just recently because of my own health problems, but that's fine. I'm over that now. And I do want to go back. And so if that's helped at all, then that's brilliant. But more than anything, my mother was part of the community. At 95, dementia, incontinent, not speaking a great deal, she used to go into the village hall. And if Chris is listening to this, he will know that my mother, who was also toothless because her dentures didn't fit any longer, she would be in the village hall, and I live opposite it, more or less every Sunday. At the bar, not physically at the bar, but she was sitting there, and she would have her drink and a packet of crisps, and the community loved my mother and supported my mother, and that was brilliant. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is the end of life should be the best possible years of our lives. And if we can care enough to make everybody's final years the best years of their lives, then we are in a truly wonderful. We cannot waste a good crisis. We are coming out of a crisis now. Let's not waste it. Let's make sure that care is at the forefront of every single person's lives. Thank you. If you want me to share the piece that I've written, I will do that, but it sounded a bit like over-prepared, so sorry. Thank you very much.
Jean, that was absolutely incredible. You just encapsulated in a few minutes a vision for our society, a call for action for our way forward after today, and a way that we can look at aging in society and how we can come together to support ourselves as we get older in society. Amazing, amazing, Jean. I can't do justice to you. You did justice to you. Absolutely fab. I'm speechless. So whilst Jean has been doing incredible stuff in Llandinam and regionally, we've also Owen and Meiriona have been doing incredible stuff in Ystrad Gynllais and regionally too. So Becky is going to be chatting with Owen and Meiriona about some of the work they do at a community level in particular.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I'm not going to say much. I'm going to let Owen and Meiriona do the speaking, but I'd just like to start with Owen and ask you a question, Owen. Can you tell us about the community of carers in Ystrad and how they've supported each other over the last 3 years, and you play to your strengths. You're quite incredible. I just want you to, if you could briefly give us an overview of that, Owen. Thank you.
Briefly, well, even before COVID, within National Gun Life, we had a very cohesive set of carers. And we're having the monthly meetings facilitated by yourselves, but we felt that wasn't enough. So what we did, we had a weekly coffee morning, and we had loads of people attend, and we also changed the venue. So we go out into the country parks and things like that, and sometimes brought our own food, and that was very relaxing. So, and we pursued that and was always in support of Creddy. Any events that was being held by Creddy, we were always supporting it and involved. When COVID came, oh dear, we couldn't meet up again. But that hasn't stopped us through the medium of Zoom, through all of the meetings that have been put on by Creddy, but also outside of that time, I've taken the initiative to speak to those people that perhaps haven't been on the internet, to have contact with them. So I have been doing that in the community. So they have been supported. It's not only myself, but Mariana has been doing the same. And during that time, the three of us have discovered that some of the carers were struggling, and quite severely. One of the carers had a stroke, so we needed help with that, which was given. And two other carers have had bereavements, so we have supported them. So it's not only the caring role as such, which they were performing, but also the carers needed support as well. And that's all been brought about because I think that we had that cohesive team before COVID. And now I think we've got to look at what we're going to be doing when we come out of COVID. And hearing today all of these wonderful stories are sort of is very inspiring. And I think during COVID, I think it's been recognized at a fairly high level that Creddy has taken initiative to change direction during COVID, which is very brave, but it seems to be working and being listened to.
Thank you, Owen. And honestly, through COVID and before, the support that you give, not just adult carers in that area, but the young carers, the community, everybody. We can see Mariona's t-shirt in the background. You are fantastic. And I think on that note, thank you so much, Owen. And you know everything. Owen comes to team meetings, he comes to training. He is fantastically supported of what we do. And
but I didn't mention the RPB that I was on for 4 years. So.
Yeah, we would be here all day phoning out all your gifts, Owen. Thank you.
It's great.
Mariona.
Hello.
I wonder if I could just ask you a brief question and then give you the floor. But can you tell us a little bit about the community garden and the plans? And even, you know, Mariona, I went to see her 3 years ago in National Gun Life, and she said about people having their unique gifts. And Mariona has an absolute gift to see those unique gifts, and like a superpower. So can you tell me about your plans and what you've done, and maybe some hopes for the future, Mariona?
Right, I wasn't quite sure how to start off or which subject to go off on. So I'll go off on that one now to start. And I've got the gardens at the hospital for all of you who don't know. We've had the hospital gardens. What we were doing, we were having our meetings at the hospital, our monthly carers meeting. We're having them for free. And 1 month, there was no room for us. So they put us in a room in the back of the hospital. And when we came out of there, I was looking straight out of the window. And there it was, the raised gardens, the polytunnel, the greenhouses. It was all there. I had been looking for a project because before that, when I was trying to mention carers to the people in National Gun Life, they were quite insulting because they didn't want those kind of carers. They didn't want paid carer. This is what I got from them. And I don't know, I'd tried all ways to get through to people. So we thought, oh yes, could we have the gardens? So we asked the matron, manager at the hospital, could we have the gardens and use them, told them what we wanted to do. Yes, there were 3 of us. There was me, there was Mary Morgan, a carer, and my daughter, Andrea, who has autism, learning difficulties, and I can't remember the name for it, but it used to be called spastic. She has all of these, but she reads, and she could talk here today even. She has worth. She can put the seeds in. She can dig. She can do anything that we can do, she can do. She hasn't been to college, not the Bain of Britain, but she has worth. So the people that we have there, we've had 2 men there who come over from the Wildlife Society because they were there when we got there. And funds ran out, they had to go, but the men that were there decided to stay with us. So we were learning about the wildlife, they were learning about the growing of food and all the rest, and we have amalgamated. One of those men has mental health issues, very deep, disturbing mental health issues. He was so glad to be down there that he didn't have to finish. The other one hadn't been out for 10 years. He hadn't left his house for 10 years. So anyway, what we are growing is organic and heritage. I don't know if you know what heritage means. The seeds of these heritage plant, this plant or this food is the offspring of food that grew thousands of years ago. And the seed has been kept and kept and kept. So it's heritage, they're called, for those who don't know. And again, we propagate whatever. I buy gooseberries, blackcurrants, etc., little trees or whatever. But we propagate everything then. It's only a once we buy. So we propagate everything then. Anyway, I've written it down. We also have child carers who come to us. They come to us on a Tuesday night. And they are learning all about growing good food, organic food. I remember one night we were there and it was time to take the potatoes out. And there was this young chap, he was about 10, I think he was. So he was up on the raised bed. And I put the fork underneath. I said, right, oh, now I said, Corey, his name is Corey. Pull the hulm. What's that? I said, the hulm is the stalk, if you like, or the leg. You pull that now. And I eased it out with him. Now all the others were scattered around doing things, is it? So anyway, he pulled the hulm. Oh, boys, he said, there's potatoes on this plant. They were learning that food doesn't come from Tesco, that it comes from the earth, the origin of food. They were learning. So we are very much entangled with them. Now then, we were going on about the hub. We used to have a hub in Ystrad and we used to sell our food. We started selling food there. And that's when the people of Ystrad got interested. They were asking us, they were coming to me now. It was tables had turned. It was a bit of a psychology, I think. Attached to that. So they were asking us about the food. Where were we growing it? And this, that, and the other. So, and then the manager at the hospital said we could have a stall next door to the tea bar. So everybody visited the hospital and anything to do with it, they were coming to buy off us. Some people, it came in the end, some people were waiting outside the door before we set the tables up on a Friday morning. Just bringing people together, people from all walks of life. So what we do then, we wear the t-shirts that you just saw there. We've all got the t-shirts. The children have them. The t-shirts were the brainchild of Sian, who was the outreach worker. Sian Nichols, outreach worker for the children in the area. So she had them made for all of us. What I do then, I say, let's go down to Tesco, let's go down to Asda down the road, and we all go. And we're all in that shop, more or less together. And when it's time to pay, we go to each till. So whoever's behind us is looking at my banner, as I call the t-shirt, my banner. I call it something. So what we managed to do, we got there in 2017, but it was too late for crops because of time for crops. And in 2018, we've made enough money to buy a 50-inch television for the men's ward. So because we asked John Davies now, who's the handyman, what shall we do with this money? He said, well, don't send it up to Llandod. He said, because we'll never see it. It goes into a black hole. We don't see the money. So I asked him now. So we bought this television because the men were arguing and quarreling when the game was on. There'd be this chap who couldn't get out of bed and the other three would sit around, but they kept turning it for themselves, you see, and the chap there couldn't see the goals and what have you. So we bought a television. And then the following year, 2019, we bought another television for the other men's ward then. So we're giving back to the community, and we give to Catch, is it a Catch we call them? They're down the road there from us. So we give a lot for them. Now, what we've done through the Wildlife Trust is to the Wildlife Boys, I should say, we've attracted hedgehogs. There were no hedgehogs there. We've got a little family now of hedgehogs. The little baby one we saw first. And there's a fish pond there, right next door to the big polytunnel. And one of the little ones, mother had enough of the fish, brought the fish down. It was put into the pond. So we're finding out now that they've bred. The fish have bred, the goldfish have bred. And you want to see the size of some of them. They're massive and they're beautiful, beautiful fish.
Mary, I'm just thinking about time.
Yes. Yeah, so
oh no, I could listen to you all day long, and
I don't have enough time. More time we want, and another one, because the following plan is to go on to hydroponics, and I've got loads to say, and I haven't got time.
Just give me a sentence about why you think the community is so incredible, led by you, Mariona. What's your one wish for the future with the community in Ystrad Life?
Oh, my one wish is that this grows. I would like this to grow. We need money. We need land. I need land to put these polytunnels on. We need a hub in Ystrad to replace the one we lost. We need a van with a logo on so that everybody can see it. So that these vans can go to Brecon and spread it out throughout Powys. Spread it out. Let them do it up the top, what we are doing down the bottom here. If they see these little vans going around with this colour, these logos on it, with photographs of the food that we're eating, growing and what have you, that's what it's all about.
We'll get you a meeting with Jen, but thank you both so much. You've been incredible as always. Thank you.
Oh, you are absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. That's so inspiring. Makes make us realise that that as citizens there's so much as possible in the community, and the way you look after each other, and the way you bring people together, and the way that you bring together older people with kids, and your ambition as well is energizing. So thank you so much. So you've heard a lot from Credi, but our partners have been incredible. So next up is Yasmin and Gail, who have been incredible to partner with, and they help thousands of people every year on a very, very practical level with benefits and with well-being too. So they are going to talk about coming together as a partnership and what it's been like to collaborate together. So Gail and Yasmin, over to you. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for the kind introduction, and hopefully from today's speakers you're starting to get a picture and further understanding of the journey we've all come up on and the impact it's had on us. What we're going to discuss, or in our section, we're going to talk about it from a strategic and organisational perspective. So a little bit more behind the scenes, as it were. So I'm going to hand over to Yasmin, and she's going to talk us through how it all worked and how it all started.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, so we sort of got together, Gail and I, and we put together a little piece about, how it all started and how it's worked, and then basically sort of the legacy that's come out of it. So how did we get there, and what made us want to work together? So initially we came together, it was instigated by Credi because we wanted to discuss a way to tackle things differently and to become more connected, because we realised that there were common issues, similar challenges that we all faced when we were supporting older people. We also knew that we needed to try something different and to see if we could tackle things differently. And working together, we knew that if we did work together, then we could definitely make a change. But one of the things that we didn't expect was the time and the dedication that we all needed to commit to make this actually a reality. And we realised quite quickly through the bid writing process that we did need a lead, and we needed somebody that could pull all of our ideas together. So Credi and Jen generously took on this challenge. Thanks, Jen. So discussions and meetings started in late 2015. And we spent about 3 years of planning before we even began to support the first person. So during 2016, we met regularly, and in 2017, we submitted a joint bid to the big lottery, and luckily we got through the first stage. But then we had to work towards the second stage, which meant we really needed to work together and to state why this project was so important to us. And we also needed to provide evidence to support our theory. We were successful with the bid, and in September 2017, we prepared to move forward together, starting our project plans and preparing ready for service delivery. And as this was a new formal sort of like a partnership, a collaboration, something that never happened before, we all needed to be really confident in each other and confident in our own organisation and other organisations' abilities to deliver the service that we outlined in our bid to the big lottery. So I'll now hand back over to Gail, and she'll give you a sort of further insight into the journey that we've made.
I mean, we had to get it right from the start. And sometimes, you know, the formalities of these things, especially when organisations come together, we all have ideas and we think, right, we'll go this way. But actually, we also have to kind of have some kind of formal agreement. And when we created our meetings, we decided we kind of encouraged that direction of travel. And whilst we had that formal collaboration agreement, actually it was the personalities that were really important to this as well. That's what made it the success it's been. It meant we all had to be really committed, and we actually had to be able to talk to each other and help each other along every step of the way. I mean, during the early days, we had to work out how we were going to do it all. We had to discuss like the boring bit, but the reporting processes, because we have to actually say, actually, this is what we actually have done to our funders. And we also needed to figure out how our organisations would fit together, and how we'd work together. And so we also, oops. This is now Yasmin's bit.
Oh, right, sorry, Q. Okay, so in 2019, one of the organisations was in the partnership, due to some circumstances that were beyond their control, had to leave the collaborative. And normally in these sort of circumstances, it would mean that they couldn't that they could no longer be involved in the project. But we felt that if they did leave, then it would leave a gap. So what we decided was instead that we'd keep that partner involved, and they were involved and included in strategic meetings. And this was quite a unique move, really, because it also meant that we were able to keep the jobs that organisation had. They were transferred to other partners effectively. And this then meant that sort of there was a limited disruption in the service delivery for both clients and for the staff themselves. Throughout the project, we've also seen changes in senior management, but what we found was that the positivity of our journey to create change came across. So the confidence of our strong foundation was also noted by our grants manager from the big lottery, when he said, "It's like you've all known each other for years." That's testament to the attitude of all who are involved. So when we've been faced with challenges like the COVID-19, we've all stepped up, we've worked together, and we've continued to deliver a service with the same level and commitment and quality that we've delivered all the way through. So I'll hand back to Gail now, and she'll talk about some of our observations.
I mean, what started as a project developed into something we didn't envisage. It was a whole new way of working and a whole new way of thinking. The working relationships and understanding between the project partners strengthened, and in turn strengthened, as we've already mentioned, the support that we provided to the clients, and the whole process becomes seamless. We've shared and used the collaborative training with others within our organisations now, like volunteers and other staff. And the impact of this, it's created a movement in many of our organisations, leading us to develop the approach in all our other services. Over the last 3 years, the willingness amongst everyone to work as a team, to share best practices, to build our knowledge, and to be flexible and adaptable has really helped change, changing and meeting the demands. And that's really worked during COVID. We all just came together and we actually found a way through and supported each other. And that's been really important as well. So us as chief officers, we've been able to come together, and that is a kind of an outcome that we didn't really expect. You know, to being able to speak to one of your peers when you're struggling yourself is actually really lovely to have that ability. But we now have a much better understanding of the work each partner does. But I also wanted to mention that an integral part of the bid was that Credi employed a project manager that helped to shape us, put the theory into practice. That's been really important. And actually, the staff that we managed to recruit actually really helped us, create this journey. Another observation is that other than RVS, who's a national organisation, we were all local and we were all specialists in our fields. And actually working with organisations covering a similar geographical patch made this project a success too. And I'm just going to hand back to Yasmin.
Okay, so the last thing we thought about was what are our legacies and what are the outcomes of this this working relationship and this partnership. So we will continue to work together in a formal or an informal partnership. We now feel that we know each other's organisations really well and also how they complement each other. We'll continue to meet and look towards new opportunities to work together. So this won't be the last project that we deliver as a collaborative. And we now feel that we can pick up the phone to any one of our partners and ask for help and guidance and any support that we need. And none of us at all want to go back to how it was before. So that's the staff, the senior management, and most importantly, the clients that we've supported. And we've developed a really strong bond between us, and we've introduced a new concept of working together that's never ever happened before. And the project has proved that it is possible to work together. And this project has formed the foundation of future collaborations. And I'm really pleased that we've been able to work together, and I hope that we will continue to work together in the future. So I'm now going to hand over to Amy, who's an outreach worker from Age Cymru Powys, and Louise, a caseworker from Citizens Advice Powys. So thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. Good morning, everybody. And we've talked a lot this morning about strengths. Actually, one of my strengths is not talking in front of hundreds of people on Teams. My heart is literally pounding out of my chest, so please bear with me. I am Amy, I'm an outreach worker. I work for Age Cymru Powys. And before I talk to you about a gentleman that we've been working with alongside Citizens Advice, I just wanted to say how much I've enjoyed the last 3 years. I think everyone has touched on it, but working so closely together with all of these organisations for me it's just been an absolute eye-opener. We've all been on the same page, we've all done our training together, and it's just been wonderful, really, really wonderful. And I feel like those barriers between different organisations trying to do different things have really been broken down because we work so closely together. It's been amazing. So over the last 3 years, I've worked with hundreds of people. And typically you think Age Cymru Powys and you think older people, but actually this project has worked with people just over the age of 50. It's not old. It's you're in the prime of your life, and there's just so many opportunities there. I've had the opportunity to listen to people and see them thrive. And it's just been wonderful. So I'm going to talk to you about a gentleman that we've worked with, and also worked alongside Citizens Advice Powys to support him. It's not actually a gentleman I've worked with, it's my colleague Louise, but she couldn't be here today. So she's asked me to talk to you about this gentleman. So he's in his early 50s. He lives alone in a sort of a rural market town in Mid Powys. And he actually came to us because the podiatry service referred him into us because Age Cymru Powys run toenail cutting clinics. Okay, so we didn't know anything about him other than his basic personal details, and our administrator gave him a ring and introduced herself and said, "I hear you'd like to have your nails cut," and then just discussed there was a charge, a huge charge, but it's a charge to have your nails cut, and it turned out this gentleman couldn't actually afford to pay to have his nails cut. So instead of sort of saying, right, okay, off you go then, we were able to say to him, well, we've got an outreach worker who could, if you want, give you a ring and do a benefit check with you and see if you're possibly entitled to some benefits or some more income. And he said, oh, yep, that's great. Please contact me. So Louise, that's my colleague, she gave him a ring and talked to him about his situation. And it turns out that he got quite a lot of sort of underlying debt and just didn't really know where to go with that. Had a very, very low income actually. She worked out he was getting employment support allowance, but he only had £74.25 coming in a week. And that's what he was living on. And he was getting by, basically. He was getting by. He wasn't necessarily eating properly. He's got underlying health issues, living with severe rheumatoid arthritis, and just really feeling like everything was insurmountable. He had a huge amount of debt with energy companies. His GP had mentioned, oh, you might be eligible for personal independence payments, but this gentleman didn't really know how to go about applying for those things. So what Louise did, she did a benefit check with him and she said, yes, it looks like you might be eligible for some of these benefits, but I'm not necessarily the expert. So we work very closely with Citizens Advice Powys and in this partnership. And if you're happy to, I can get my colleague there, who is also a Louise, to work with you and help you apply for those benefits. And so that collaboration and being able to just work so closely with Citizens Advice it's just wonderful. So what she did, she stayed in contact with the gentleman to help him with other things like getting some food parcels from the food bank, but referred him over to Citizens Advice Powys. As I say, he'd heard about PIP but hadn't actually applied for it. She talked to him about the heating in his house. His boiler had broken down months, if not over a year before we actually spoke to him. He just had 2 small heaters in his house that he was using to heat 2 rooms. And obviously with his health problems and it being the start of winter, this wasn't a very good situation for him. So Louise referred him to the other Louise, who's going to talk to you in a second, at Citizens Advice. And then she was able to kind of talk to him through his debts and see what other support was available. So I'll let Louise tell you now what she did with him.
Hi. Yeah, I can totally agree with what Amy said about working together. We've, as an organisation, we do call each other quite often now, don't we, Amy?
Yeah.
And also with some of the other workers in Age Cymru as well. So yeah, when this gentleman was referred to us at Citizens Advice Powys, he told us he'd been working previously, self-employed, but he'd had to give that up due to his health conditions. So he'd been managing on this low income for quite a few years and had used up all his savings just to get by. His house was really old and it had got problems with the utility connections. It needed updating to make it more energy efficient. But he generally finds it difficult to talk to people and to connect with local support. So he hadn't really done anything or taken all the steps he needed to do to sort of improve his circumstances, although he had tried. So when we first spoke to him, we found out that what really mattered to him was sort of achieving a better quality of life. That was the main thing he needed to sort of to do. So, he'd been trying to deal with this, maybe making a claim for personal independence payment and to sort out his energy problems. And it was all having more and more impact on his health. He wasn't able to sleep. So by the time we spoke to him, because he'd had some information from Age Cymru Powys about personal independence payment, a disability benefit, he had actually managed to ring the Department of Work and Pensions to start the claim. But then he'd been sent a form and that was yet another hurdle he had to get over, and he was really struggling to be able to sort of fill the form in and know what to do with that. So we assisted him with completing the PIP form over the telephone by the deadline he had. and we advised about sending supporting medical evidence, and that the DWP would contact him to discuss his issues as part of the assessment process. When the PIC claim was turned down by the DWP, unfortunately, we've continued to work with him. So you know, he can ask for that decision to be looked at again. That's called a reconsideration. And part of that process involves identifying further medical evidence that might help inform the DWP better of how he is affected by his health. So without specialist support at this stage, many clients actually give up, and they continue to miss out on benefits that they could be entitled to, which would improve their lives. So it's important that the client and we can both report to the DWP how difficult the process is for people. And working in a collaborative way with Connected Generation, it's made this more obvious than ever, that we, you know, the influence side of the project, helping people to have a voice about what's affecting them. The client's energy issue has still got to be resolved because he finds it difficult to deal with things. He hasn't actually actioned the authority for us to speak to his energy company, but the Age Cymru outreach work is still working with him and encourage him to work with us to help with both of the issues that were having most impact on his life, and also to work on his own strengths to improve his life. So Amy can just tell you a little bit more about how working with both of us in a joint way has changed things for this man so far.
Thank you, Louise. Yeah, it's really important what you said there about this gentleman. So we've been trying to work with his strengths, and obviously something he highlighted right at the beginning was that he struggled on the telephone with people. So we're trying not to rush him. We want him to be able to do those things for himself. And, you know, if we do everything for people, then they may not ever be able to do it. And he does feel that he's come on, and that he, for example, both of Louise's struggled sometimes to get hold of him on the telephone, whereas now he answers their calls a little bit more readily, and he's open to that conversation about, he's sort of asking for help as opposed to just sitting back and thinking, gosh, all this stuff is building and building and building. So Louise has actually spoken to him this week and had a chat to him and found out how he's getting on. And I think it's a really, really lovely quote he actually sort of said is, I'm a million miles away from where I was this time last year, and I'm feeling a lot more positive, which is huge, you know, for someone that was just feeling quite depressed and really like everything was overwhelming. For him to say that to her is just really, really, really good. He's now having a regular weekly phone call from our befriending service, which is wonderful because, you know, he said he wasn't very good on the phone, but actually he doesn't see many people, and because of the pandemic, having that weekly phone call, I think the first one he received was on Boxing Day, which, you know, for a lot of people that Christmas period, if you're alone anyway, it can be very difficult. So it was just so wonderful to hear. And he said he's just loved it. He's loved having somebody ringing him every week just to check in, have a chat about what he's doing. There's obviously, like Louise said, still heating issues in his home, but through our other programmes, we offer Age Cymru Powys. We've had a warm home programme over Christmas, over the winter period, and we've applied for the Nest scheme, and we're looking at grants for boilers, so hopefully we'll be able to sort that out for him as well and get a boiler in there. He's had a few vouchers now from the food bank, and we're looking at, there's a local homeless charity who actually, if people are on a low income, they also provide food parcels. So until he gets that PIC claim sorted and he's got more money coming in, we're hoping he can probably have some food parcels from them just to tide him over, make sure he's not going hungry as well. What I really want to just finish off on is just really enjoyed working on this project and this collaboration between Citizens Advice Powys and Age Cymru Powys and Credi, knowing that we are all working with our own strengths and our own expertise. Like, I'm not a benefits expert, and that's been okay because I've been able to draw on the strengths of my colleagues across different organisations. It's been wonderful, and seeing the difference it's made in people's lives across Powys is, I can't even put it into words. It's why I love my job, and it really has been wonderful. So thank you for the opportunity to work with you all. That's me, I'm done.
Amy, that was fantastic. I think that and Louise as well, absolutely really inspiring. And what strikes me from the brilliant analysis of the partnership work in the Rigo from Gail and Yasmin, and the way you will put the partnership in practice is the importance of relationships with each other and relationships with the people we support. So absolutely brilliant. our time is shifting around a little bit because our schedule needs to shift a little bit because because our time is gone over somewhat. But can Dylan Owen from Powys County Council have to go to another meeting? Can I bring him in to share some of his reflections? I think we really wanted him to join us today because he's listened so much to the people that we support, and he shared power and resources with those people, and co-produced some amazing projects, which are respite and awareness raising project. And I just wanted to share his insights and for us to all benefit from his insights, really. So Dylan, have you still got a couple of moments to share your insights with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me? Iawn,
Absolutely.
gret, diolch yn fawr. Mae'n hyfryd cael bod yma, a mae'n wir ddrwg gennai mod i'n gorfod mynd mor fuan a mor sydyn. I'm really sorry that I've got to leave and leave you so quickly. I have another meeting at midday, and I recognise the value of this and how important it is. It's just that there are lots of other meetings also where people think that it's important, and obviously there's value to them all. Thank you so much for talking, and thank you so much for inviting me here to listen. And to my colleagues, I know that I have a number of colleagues also in the background who've hidden themselves behind cameras, who are also here and listening. And I know that's so important. It's humbling to listen to you talk. Always is. Mae o'n neud fi deimlo'n wylaidd iawn, a dwi'n teimlo hynny i'r byw mewn gwirionedd. It's listening to Jean speak and to Owen, and then to Miriona, it kind of really brings it home and brings it to life. And I think that's very, very special, what we've heard today and about what was being told. And I find it inspirational, to be honest. I've also laughed quite a bit in the background here. I had my camera off too. But I was laughing at other people's responses. Laughing at you is a terrible thing to do, isn't it? But I'm being honest about it, because when Miriona was telling us about all the men quarrelling and arguing, and the smiles across the screen was brilliant. Everyone was enjoying the whole thing. It was almost as if we were in a play and in a drama and watching it. Something that Miriona said, though, to me struck a chord, and it really made me think. I work in social services. I'm an occupational therapist by trade, and I know I've got colleagues here from who are social workers by trade and who are also in the meeting. And I sometimes try to remind myself that our role is to try to mitigate human misery. There's something about making sure that people who are in difficult circumstances in their life and who are going through significant change or are struggling to live their daily lives, that our role is to try to ease the way and to support them to find the way forward, and support them to make informed decisions about their own lives and to enable themselves. So listening is so important. But what Miriona said was, I think it was about your daughter, Miriona, when you said she has worth.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if that kind of hit home with anybody else on the call or in this virtual room, but wow, that really struck me. I was in the middle of drinking my coffee and I put it down and go, oof, that's powerful stuff. And it's simple stuff, isn't it? Yes. But we all have worth, every one of us. And the question that Jean said about, the Carol Ann Duffy quote, if you like, and what shall we do, with what we've got left of our life, and how are we going to use it, and recognizing that we've all got worth. If we've all got worth, then it's important that we listen, and that we listen to each other, and that we provide each other the opportunity to say what matters to them, so that we can work to that, and that we can enable people to achieve what matters to them. I'm not going to speak much more than that. I know that our social work colleagues are working really, really hard at the moment due to, they're looking at alternative ways to provide respite support, to provide for day centres that are closed, trying to outreach in order to support people within this pandemic. And it's not an easy situation. We recognise the impact that the pandemic's had. Social services are difficult. If they weren't, we wouldn't be needed. So it's difficult. It's complex. Throw a pandemic on top of that. It's complex and challenging. And we recognise that what you do, the third sector organisations, that will support services, but you as service users and providers too, are kind of essential and crucial to the whole of our society and our community. So thank you. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that you that you also value that we listen to you. And I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing, the informal, unpaid, and often unthanked work. Diolch yn fawr I chi.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Dylan. Thank you so much. It was really really kind of you to come and share your insights and appreciation of the amazing amazing citizens we've got in the room with us, inspiring us. So and yeah, we all have worth. Mariona, you inspired that. But we have our time is going over by about 20 minutes. We've cut a few things out. So if you but what's really worth waiting for it, if you're able to, is a video with Hayley from RBS, and Hayley at RBS runs a Community Companions project where people are matched to form friendships, and that they might be previously isolated. And what Hayley tells us is just how much both the companions and people who are getting companions give to each other, and how it's an equal relationship, and people are both givers and takers in that relationship, and that relationship matters, and they both go in. So Hayley, over to you.
Thank you very much. Oops. Thank you very much, Jenny. I did, with Sam's help, I interviewed 4 community companion volunteers which are located throughout Powys, which are supporting older isolated people in need of some sort of friendship, companionship. They're very lonely and isolated. So we successfully talked to 4 volunteers located from the top of Powys, Llanfyllin, and down towards Brecon, and they talk about their experiences and this difference that it's made to the person that they're supporting, and also the difference that it's made to them personally by the giving. I think they speak for themselves, and the benefit that they've had and achieved. I just want to say that the Connected Generation project has been a joy to work on, and working with partners, it's added strength by working together and the sharing. And my role is to recruit volunteers and to support them and to train them, and then place them with older isolated people in need. I've always said from the very early beginnings of the project 3 years ago, I've always said that it's fine, but when you get a volunteer, those of you who work with volunteers, the worst thing is if you have them and they're ready and rearing to go and nothing for them to do. The joy of working in a partnership is that through the Connected Generation project, I've been able to work with my colleagues in the fellow agencies who know these people who are in need of support and who would benefit from having a companionship. And then with all the juggling and trying to match volunteers in the vast isolated county of Powys, trying to match them with interests so that they are the right type of person and to support that person in need. So we've got a selection of volunteers. I'll leave it to them so they can talk about their experiences of what they've achieved by supporting isolated, lonely people and what it's meant, the difference it's made to them. But thank you anyway and I hope that we can continue to work in partnership, because we've made a difference. And in terms of caring and kindness and love, it would be great to continue this. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Hayley. Okay, fingers crossed again for the internet gods, but here we go.
My name's Hayley Bevan, and I work as a community enablement development worker for the Royal Voluntary Service. I have with us here today 4 volunteer community companions who are supporting lonely and isolated people as part of the Connected Generation project. Robin, can you tell me a little bit about
Yes,
the
yes,
person that you're supporting?
Well, let's call him Henry. He's 86 years old. Because he lives basically on his own in an old age pensioners bungalow. He rarely sees anybody from week to week except me. He's got a great sense of humour. He's worked everywhere. He's been in the RAF. He's worked in the shipbuilding yards.
What about Mark? Tell us a little
Yes.
bit about the person first.
Okay, so let's call her Harriet.
Yeah.
She's in her 90s. She lives alone, particularly in this last pandemic year. She hasn't even been out of the house, I don't think. I don't think she's actually been out of the house once. So she's completely isolated. I ring her up on a regular basis, and we both have art in common. It turns out she used to be an artist and I'm a practicing artist. So we have that in common and we chat about that. And we've exchanged pictures and things, and I'm trying to get her back into drawing and things. So, and I think she appreciates the fact that I actually ring her on a Thursday today. So I ring her at about 5 o'clock, and then it sort of grounds her in her week. She knows what day it is, and she knows that I'm calling and things like that. She's very bright and really good company, and she's from Yorkshire, and she's given me tips on what to do with my summer holiday if I decide to go to Yorkshire. So she's brilliant. Yeah, she's really interesting to talk to, and I think we've got a good relationship. Yeah.
Mark, thank you for those contributions.
Yep.
Now, where should we go next? Anne?
I'm a recent volunteer. One is a gentleman that I visit weekly, and the request was that I did some shopping and just went and chatted to him. He lives in an isolated area and he doesn't see anyone. I now know that he finds that really nice, that he has somebody to stand there and chat to him. And I don't know about dementia, but a couple of weeks ago, he suddenly said, I was thinking about you the other day, and I suddenly thought, wow, because he didn't even remember who I was. Every time I was explaining who I was and why I was there. And last week he asked me when I would be calling again. And then yesterday he said, I was thinking about you yesterday. I knew you were coming today, which for me was just enormous.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anne.
Flavia, I live near Llanymynech. I got involved with RVS at the beginning of the pandemic because I wanted to do some voluntary work to help out. I've got one lady who has quite poor health and mobility issues, but she has a lot of family around. But people can still be isolated even within a family, really. We found common ground in terms of television programs. There was a book I was reading that she was quite interested in, so I posted it to her when I finished. She did have some family issues. With Hayley's advice and support, I did send her some Samaritan's material, which she found useful.
You've all now talked about the difference that you're making to the person you're supporting. Now, to turn the other side of the relationship, what about the differences made individually to each of you in your lives?
Yeah, it's been really nice just to meet someone new, really. I mean, with the socializing this year has been really limited because people have such interesting lives, don't they? And things you never sort of expect as well. So it's been nice to feel like I'm contributing, because otherwise you're kind of just doing your own thing a bit, aren't you?
Especially in the pandemic when we've all been isolated more, it's been really good to sort of reach out. And I do believe in the sense of, service to the community. It's very important. And so I get, a feeling that I'm being useful that way. And also they are, at the end of the day, relationships. I'm very keen on particularly supporting elderly people, because I think that they get a bad deal quite often in society. And actually elderly people are far more interesting than young people because they've lived long and they've got stories to tell. So, it's definitely a two-way relationship, and it's quite rewarding, I'd say. Yes.
That's what Companions is all about. It's a nurturing relationship and a two-way relationship. Yes. Robin?
Yes, it's made a tremendous difference to me, to be honest. In so much that I almost feel the two people I am involved with, are part of the family, and quite honestly, I feel somewhat sort of responsible for them. But with these old people being so vulnerable, you tend to spend a lot of time thinking about them and working on what they can and can't do and that sort of thing. It's been good that the coronavirus has, keeping us all indoors, has made us realise what they're like most of the time.
You've made that connection, and so you want to help, you want to make a difference.
Yeah, you want to make more difference. You don't get enough of making difference, where you feel very responsible and attached. That's the trouble.
We've touched on it already. What sort of difference do you think it's made to the families and carers that you're supporting? Just to have a conversation about that. And Anne, start perhaps with you, because you mentioned the gentleman that you're supporting and the relationship he has with his daughters who are so far away.
It was his daughter, one of his daughters, that made the initial referral. So I have telephone contact. Texting is the way that we communicate. And right at the beginning, we agreed a way forward in that she would text me. She texts and lets me know what shopping he wants. We've agreed that if he doesn't want any shopping, I will get a newspaper, so that, because that was my way of introducing myself again as to why I was there. So we communicate every week via text, but it works really well. The way we are communicating surely is to the benefit of her dad.
Yes, quite Anne. It's all very much about nurturing a relationship with the person that you're supporting, that you've made a difference to their lives, and they look forward to the regular contact with someone they feel, as Mark mentioned, someone that they feel they can trust. It's very much, the Community Companion Project is very much about supporting the older, lonely, isolated person, but also giving a little bit of support to the perhaps wider family who don't have regular contact with them. So thank you all very much for the brilliant job that you're doing in terms of supporting the people who are lonely and isolated throughout the breadth of Powys. Diolch yn fawr, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Hayley. That was fantastic. And thank you to your amazing companion colleagues as well. Absolutely brilliant and really inspiring. So we're very, very nearly at the end of our session. We've gone over time slightly. So before we come to our reflections with the Older People's Commissioner for Wales, Helena Herclot, can I just have a few headline learning tips from Dr. Sarah Lloyd-Jones that we can use to reflect as we go on and to take action as we go forward?
Oh, right, okay. So basically, I mean, what I've been hearing is all about strength and all about contributions and all about giving. And I just think it can change the dialogue around how we work with older people. And people have talked about this, how this way of working being so exciting and having such potential, that I think that's really important. The word that comes across over and over and over again this morning has been listening, and really trying to hear what people are saying. People have talked about avoiding a dogma. This is when you listen, you really do respond to what people are saying. So you don't come in with, this is the way we work. And a dogma can be, you can have a dogma around strength-based work in the same way you can have a dogma about anything else. So when you're genuinely listening, it's not about fitting anybody into any sort of box, even what seems like a nice open box. The people have talked about older people as being part of the community and shaping the community and at the heart of the community, not isolated and someone different to the rest of us. And I'm an older person, so I can talk about that part of it too. And I think the other thing that's been really clear across this morning and across all the work is this isn't about solving problems. People living complicated, difficult lives with problems that cannot be solved. This is about ensuring that people live the best life they can in whatever their situation and in whatever way that they want to do it. I think it's been a really, really inspirational session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for that brilliant summary and capturing some of the key learning points that we've gained from so many inspiring speakers. And over now to the Older People's Commissioner for Wales. Thank you, Helena, for joining us today. It's a real privilege to have you here after you've done so much work championing the rights of older people across Wales and listened to so many older people across Wales as well. So over to you.
Jenny, thank you, and hi everyone. It's lovely to be with you. And first of all, I've just had a lovely couple of hours listening to you, being inspired by you. And I want to share a quote actually that some of you might know, but I think it fits what I've heard today. And it's a quote from an American writer and anthropologist called Margaret Mead. And she said this: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And you have been changing the world. Everything you've been talking about has been absolutely about the changes that you've been able to make. And in my role as Older People's Commissioner, when I came into the role, I set out a vision that I wanted to work to, and I wanted to work with others to achieve. And that is to make Wales the best place in the world to grow older. Now, I know you can't get kind of much more of a bigger vision than that, but the reason I set that out is because, first of all, I think we can be. And what you are doing is blazing a trail for that. You are demonstrating that already. And the second reason is because we ought to be aiming to do that. We ought to be working together to make our country the best place in the world to grow older, whether we're an older person now, or whether we're a younger person now, whether we're someone who is caring for others or needing care ourselves. And some of the things I've been working on, and I think we can work on together as we go forward, I want to just touch on 2 or 3 things. First, a word about the last year. My role as Commissioner is to protect and promote the rights of older people. And this last year has been the most challenging year I'm sure many of us can remember, and particularly challenging in terms of the rights of older people, which at times have not been supported, at times have been forgotten or ignored. So the work we have to do together to rebuild from here is going to be very challenging. We've kind of dealt with unknown challenges over the last year, and we face a whole range of new challenges ahead. And I think some of those we don't know what they are yet. But everything that you've talked about the way of working and the way of working together, co-production, something that struck me was about the humility of everyone in terms of not putting your organisation or brand first, but actually working with humility with other people and with older people, not thinking you know all the answers, but being prepared to ask the questions and to listen. All those values are what we are going to need as we work through together. And one of the focuses I've got is about the importance now of making sure we leave no one behind. So as we come out, hopefully, of the pandemic or transition into the next phase, there's a danger that some of the people that you're working with and some of the people that we know do get left behind, maybe because they're not digitally online, maybe because they're not linked into services, maybe because the people that were helping with them are going back to the office and can't do that now. So we have to really work hard together to make sure that we enable older people, people who are caring, people who may not have their voice heard. We enable them to have their voice heard and to champion and to empower them. So two things I'm working on that I just want to flag. One is work to help older people rebuild and regain their mental and physical health, which may have deteriorated during the pandemic. And we know that has happened. We know, for example, that lots of people who are caring for others have faced particular struggle because of the closure of some services. We know that levels of anxiety and depression have increased. And we need to make sure that older people can access the services and support to regain and rebuild their physical and mental health as much as possible. And a lot of the answers to that, a lot of the ways in which we can do that are doing more of what you are already doing, but making sure that that can happen across Wales as well. And part of my role, it seems to me, will be to amplify and share and help promote the work that you're doing. So a real key area for me and my team, working with you and others, I hope, is to look at how we can enable people to rebuild their physical and mental health. And the second area that we're working on now with a number of local authorities, and I want to be working with all local authorities, is how we can develop as age-friendly communities. And age-friendly communities are places where you can do the things that you want to do, you can get to the places you want to get to, and it enables us all, whatever our age, to age well. And the World Health Organization has an international network of age-friendly communities and cities across the world. And you know, at the moment, there are no places in Wales that are part of that network. And I want to change that. I want to work with communities to enable them to review what they're doing, to continue to improve and learn, and to become part of this global movement to make the places we live age-friendly. And it's about things like social participation. It's about respect and social inclusion. It's about access to services and transport and good housing. And it's about place. And all the work you've been doing seems to me to put Powys in a fantastic position to really be able to build on that and to become part of that network. And the third area I want to touch on, which is really important, and I think is at the root of some of the problems that older people face, is the ageism and age discrimination that is in our society. And there's been lots of debates about whether the pandemic has created ageism or whether it's laid it bare. And I laid it bare, it was always there. But if you cast your mind back to the beginning of the pandemic and the way that some things were talked about, I remember hearing a lot this line, coronavirus only affects older people. As if somehow, because it was older people that were most affected, it was less serious an issue. And we have, I'm afraid to say, seen language about older people, and some of the commentators and some politicians across the UK not necessarily acting in a way that wasn't about ageism. So we need to tackle that. And we know that the best ways of tackling it are about education, about training, and also about bringing generations together. And it seems to me, again, that's what a number of the services and projects you've been doing have been about, recognizing that there is much more that unites us that divides us. And so one of the things I've called for, we're working on, is a sense of intergenerational solidarity now as that we come out of the pandemic. Recognizing, as we have heard today, that we all have worth, but recognizing this too, that we are all vulnerable. Because I think if there's one thing that we've all learned this year, it's about our own vulnerability. And so we need to have that humility that we are all vulnerable and we all have value. And we shouldn't let the next phase of the pandemic put people in boxes, that these are the people who are vulnerable, who need looking after, and these are the people who have worth and value. We all have our vulnerabilities and we all have value. And our worth and our value does not diminish as we get older. It does not diminish as we get older. So I've been, like all of you, I think, incredibly inspired, enthused, excited. I've kind of laughed and cried here while I've been listening to everything that you have done. And so I look forward, Jenny, to maybe having a further conversation with you about how we can take some of this work forward, how the work that we're doing nationally can complement and link in with what you're doing, and how we can set our joint ambition to make Wales the best place in the world to grow older, and how we can make sure in our work that we leave no one behind and that we recognise each other's value and also each other's vulnerability. So thank you again for a lovely couple of hours, and I wish you all the very best. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
That was what a way to finish off our event today. Thank you so much. What a call to action as well. What a call to action with the idea of inspired by Jean. You know, what will we do now with the gift of our life, left life? What will we do now? So with that thought, and with the thought that everybody is vulnerable and everybody has worth, which is what Helena and Mariona and Dylan agree on. With those thoughts and with the challenges we go forward now, that we go forward in a way that everybody regains and rebuilds their physical and mental health after this pandemic. So our communities are age-friendly and friendly and inclusive of everybody, and that we leave nobody behind. With that in mind, with those things in mind, what would you love to focus on going forward? What would you love to take action on going forward? So to finish off, can you put in chat to everybody one word or one sentence about what you'd love to take action on, and what you'd love to come together about over in future. And if you're interested in learning more about person-centered strength-based practice in a way with a really inspiring trainer, with Becky, whose training is legendary. She's going to be doing a session on the 29th of April at 1 o'clock. And Parvo, while we were developing this project, Parvo developed a project called Community Connectors, and now they've got community connectors all over Powys doing really valuable work, and they become a really important partner of ours. So if you so they are going to be doing a session with us as well around community building. And you know that fabulous session you heard from Gail and Yasmin, the Chief Executive of Age Cymru Powys and the Chief Executive of Citizens Advice Power. They are going to be doing a session on partnership. So we've got those sessions to look forward to, thinking spaces. Those spaces are not seminars or webinars like this. They are spaces for you to grapple with the things that you are grappling with, and to come together and to help you take action in your own areas. But so on that, but what we'll do more, take more action along with you, but we're going to let that agenda be informed by you. So just put into chat what you would really love to work on going forward, and we'll see what we can do together going forward. Thank you for so much. I want to say a really special thank you to Zandra Pitt, who has been our project manager for the yay, Zandra's waving. She's been a project manager for this project for the last 3 years, and her last official day with us, although I'm sure we're gonna wind her back into creating Age Cymru and accessibility in other ways. Official last day with us is today. So after this session, you are welcome to go and grab some food and join us for a leaving lunch. Just give us an email, and we'll give you the link for a leaving lunch. And but Zandra's been absolutely fantastic and inspiring to work with, and has been a moral voice throughout the work, always making sure that we check our conscience in every decision we make, that we think about the fact that we're working alongside people and working with people rather than doing to people, and has brought experiences from Shelter Cymru, from Women's Aid, and from really cutting edge work over the years that and she brought it all to us in Powys. So cutting edge work in the heart of London, right here to bringing it right here to us in Powys. So thank you so much, Sandra. Sam, behind the scenes, you have curated just such a cool event. I mean, and all the technology that went behind it is unbelievable. But to you all, everybody that's contributed, you know, everybody, the citizens here today, the speakers here today, the people come and listen and being generous enough to give us the time to listen to it. I really can't thank you all enough. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And I look forward to seeing you for taking action together in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's it.